I'd like to welcome the motion today in relation to autism services by the Labour Party. I think it's a very well thought out motion, and nobody could argue with the contents of the motion. And Minister, we, a number of TDs from Dublin Midwest, recently met you in relation to ongoing issues around CHO7, which I would represent in Dublin Midwest, and the kind of it was a quite hopeful meeting, I have to say, and you know, I will hold my counsel until then, but CHO7 has one of the longest waiting lists for basic services for children, and that's one of the longest, one of the highest in the country. So I don't doubt your bona fides in trying to challenge that and address that for the many families, not only in CHO7 but across the country. And this issue has been raised countless times, Minister, in my 5 years tenure here. I just want to go back to 14, 15 months ago. And I'm not talking about the pandemic, I'm talking about the general election that took place on the 8th of February. And that general election, you know, the voice of the people spoke. And one of the narrative of that general election was an earthquake in some ways. The narrative of that general election was that the incumbent government and previous governments had not delivered on public services. When you really kind of drill down on the reason why there was such a kind of seismic kind of change in that election, it was public health and services when people needed them in time of need. They weren't there. And I think people had cracked and people wanted something very different. And I think that the pandemic has compounded a lot of you know, historical inequalities in Ireland. And one of them inequalities is about intervention and around autism and the services that, you know, people should get, but they can't. You know, waiting like 2 years, 3 years for basic services for children, speech and language and physiotherapy, it's just not acceptable, absolutely unacceptable in 21st century Ireland. And even, I mean, it's incredible, like, you know, the Disability Act from 2005 stipulates that a child, when they get assessed, it should take 6 months before that assessment takes place, and, you know, possibly they get the services. But there has been numerous cases and ongoing cases in the High Court at the moment where families are bringing the state in breach of this Disability Act. Now that's a stain on this government and previous governments. Because what families are looking for, and we've all got them phone calls, extremely distressing phone calls, where family members cannot get the basic services for the child. And it's, you know, sometimes you feel useless, you know, when you say, look, I'll make a phone call or send an email, but I know what the answer is going to be, and that answer is going to be, you're going to be waiting probably up to 2 years. It's really kind of, it's heartbreaking for the families. So what these families want is better outcomes and better services. They're basic things, they're very basic things. And hopefully, Minister, with your tenure here, in the time that you're a minister, that you will address of some of them very kind of real issues that really kind of impact deeply on families when they need services the most. And ASD units have been a very big success in Ireland, but there's not enough, there's an over subscribing of ASD units, not only in Dublin Midwest, but obviously in other parts of the state. And they're really good, but with engaging with children, and the whole environment is brilliant, but we need more, and we need more kind of them settings, because better outcomes, early intervention, you know, it's a no-brainer. You know, they have better results. So, Minister, as I said, I hope in your tenure as Minister for this area that you will address the deep inequalities in relation to this, and I think you will. I do believe that you will, but that the proof is, I mean, sometimes that in motions and kind of, because, you know, sometimes this can be in theatre sometimes, but the real kind of progress is when families don't have to ring people like us. They don't have to ring people like families shouldn't be contacting us for basic service. They shouldn't be. Let's be honest. You know, they should be getting that service in time, not 2 years, but when it's there. And that's all families are asking. So hopefully, at the end of this process, that families, once and for all, can get them services that they need. Thank you.